Hey, good afternoon, everybody. This is Dr. John Michael Salvato, and with me is Reverend Robert Brzezinski, and you're watching Inner Alchemy, the science of spiritual living. And today's topic is that I bring value, the affirmation that I bring value to every encounter. You know, so many times we are unsure of ourselves, and we're second guessing our decisions, and trying to make them based on the world around us because we're not always ready to trust ourselves. It can be difficult not to suppress your true self in a world that's quick to judge and compare you to everyone else. And so today is about learning to trust ourselves. It's about learning that right here and right now, if we can just love ourselves in this moment, and be true to the best version of ourselves that's expressing right now, that there's literally no limitations to what we can accomplish with our lives. You know, our entire lives are learning experiences, and sometimes the decisions that we make are true to us, and sometimes we miss our mark, and it's okay because the whole journey itself is what matters, not just the end, the end target. And so this is about learning to embrace who we are, to love who we are, and to recognize that we really do bring value to the moment, bring value to every encounter. We talk a lot about loving ourselves on this show, because when we practice loving ourselves, we develop a certain trust that brings us closer to an awareness of our true nature. And so today, it's particularly, I think, important that we talk about this topic of bringing value to the moment, because it's unavoidable to turn on the media, to look on social media, to read our emails, or see the community around us, without recognizing the effects that over the last 4 weeks that increasing violence has had in our communities. Violence against innocent people, violence that's unprovoked, and it's inexplicable, violence that we just can't make sense of. And so today, I think that as we start, right now, all around the country and possibly around the world, I'm not sure, there are candlelight vigils going on in solidarity with the folks in Dallas. You know, candlelight vigils that are also in solidarity, with Alton, and the other gentleman's name begins with a P, and I can't remember what it is. It's a unique name, but with the families of the victims of yesterday's horrific violence as well. And so let's just kind of take a second and breathe into this moment all of the love that we possibly can, and send that out to the world around us. And Robert, I'll let you take over from there.
So I'm going to couple onto that and ask, we're going to do that here, you and I, John Michael, and if anybody's watching, and if you're watching this at another time, just, breathe into the moment. And recognize that at the heart of that moment, there's only one thing going on. Today I call that love. And I know that love resides within me and radiates out across this entire planet and beyond. So I breathe in the love, and I want to echo that feeling that there is something happening here. I believe in this power of one. I really, truly know at some level, whatever it is that's going on, and we can give it all kinds of different labels, there's one thing happening. And that one thing is got to be an expression of the divine, of the power, the presence, whatever you want to call it, whatever name you give it. So it's very interesting. When I first heard the news about what happened in Dallas, I actually, I'm not all that happy that Facebook now has live video. Let's just put it that way, because I immediately got sucked into the story of it. And I want to be honest. I walked upstairs and I thought to myself, my God, this country's coming closer and closer to a race war by the minute, by the minute. And I had to stop myself because the truth is that's not bringing value to the conversation. That's not bringing any value to any concept of what wants to be done or what is mine to do in service to a healing here. Now it's interesting because of the shootings in the last couple of days. Yesterday was a pretty popular day for a lot of different people, and organizations were making statements. People were coming out and saying, this violence must end, this violence must end. And what I believe we saw last night in Dallas was a retaliation to against a group of people that are perceived to have not heard that call to end the violence, that have not been able to hear just yet that strong message that says this has to change. And what I woke to today overall was generally not positive, happy, but positive in that God's got something happening here. And we are seeing interfaith vigils across the planet. We are seeing more and more people being willing to step up and no longer stand silent. I've read some amazing articles in the last a couple of days. And if you know of Justin Cohen, justincohen.com, it's called Advice for White Folk in the Wake of a Police Murder of a Black Person. I can't do it justice by trying to explain it all. Go find it and read it. I'll put the quote. If we got a chat box, I'll put the link in here. I'm sure it's all over the place. And what is happening is there is now really a dialogue happening. And I think what's happening is those with white privilege, I believe, are waking up to the fact that we've got to own that. And we've got to actually use that to be a part of this change. I don't know that Black Lives Matter as a movement I believe it will be much more effective when those in white privilege are able to stand with them and say, I will no longer stand for this either. When those with privilege actually make a statement and are active in changing the perceptions of what's going on around them, that don't remain silent when somebody's being discriminated against in the grocery store or in the convenience store or
And
in
let's
line at a government office.
and let's be real clear too for those who may not be aware. And I'm not sure what the perception is like overseas, but the violence that was perpetrated last night against those Dallas police officers was not violence that came out of the Black Lives Matter movement. As a biracial person myself, I just want to say that my heart is with all of the victims, with Philandro and Alton, and with the cops, and with the because here's what happened last night. The cops that were murdered last night were the cops that were standing in solidarity with the peaceful protesters from the Black Lives Matter movement. It's no different than we saw this past week as ISIS or the Islamic State attacked some of the holiest places in Islam, and so we finally get this realization that maybe the Islamic fundamentalists have nothing to do with Islam. Maybe they don't value their tradition any more than the rednecks that are cheering on Donald Trump honor their tradition. Maybe they are, the problem, and that it's not the people that we've been labeling as the problem. And so I think that's what's happening here too. This horror, the atrocity that took place last night, is no less of an atrocity than the senseless murder of Philandro or of Alton or of any of the other, 47 or 48 people who were murdered in the last year, who were unarmed and were innocent individuals. So what happens is that we as a people, sometimes think that we have to say, oh well, now this means all lives matter, and that's very offensive. And so, to my
Oh yeah.
Caucasian brothers and sisters out there, please don't respond. While I realize that most of you that do this respond from your heart and say all lives matter, that's very offensive for one simple reason. It's offensive for the same reason that it's offensive on July 1st for the people who decided to use the hashtag straight pride. Because we, until, as Robert said, until we own the role that we've played in oppressing people in a nation that was founded on oppression. Let's not pretend that the Constitution or the Declaration of Independence were not oppressive documents. Let's not forget that the Declaration of Independence refers to native peoples as savages. And so we have to own that part of that legacy, and have to say that's no longer acceptable for us today. In this moment, I choose to be loved.
Yes.
In this moment, race consciousness of the past 200 years doesn't matter and has no impact on me, other than to strengthen my resolve to stand in oneness with my sisters and brothers, to erase those lines in the sand. And so I've seen a lot of conversation about people who say, why are we having this conversation if race is an illusion, and if race doesn't really exist? And well, we have this conversation because people are being murdered over that illusion. We're spiritual beings having a spiritual experience on the physical plane, and on this physical plane, there are people living by the illusion that there are lines in the sand. Whether they be lines of skin color, lines of religion, lines of gender, lines of sexual orientation. And so it's incumbent upon us, and that's what we're going to do here today, is to begin the process of healing by making the decision to be loved, and by recognizing that if I take 100% responsibility for my experiences, then that means I can only bring love into this moment. And I can recognize, and must recognize, that I bring value to every encounter. And if I can bring that value, which is love, to every person with whom I encounter, those ripples, as I put a quote on my Facebook wall about Mother Teresa saying, some people think they can't do great things, but if you're just that stone that's thrown into the pond and makes ripples, those ripples can extend to the whole world. Your ripples of love can extend to the whole world. It's the butterfly effect. And so you do matter. You do bring value to every moment. And so let's just make a decision now that value we're going to bring is the value of healing, of reconciliation, and love.
Absolutely. It's our vibration of love, the consciousness we bring can be the gift, can be that value, is that value. I want to share something that also showed up this morning, and this is not mine. This is written by Esther Nicholson. Esther is a woman of color. She's a spiritual leader, and I really think that what she shares this morning is important for everyone to hear. So I'm just going to read it off. I'm going to say something that is really controversial right now, and that's okay if it leads to healing. Absolutely, healing must happen in our justice system and with law enforcement, who have been conditioned on a deep subconscious level to look at African American lives as, quote, other and less than valuable. We have indeed come a long way, but there is a deep blind spot in the subconscious minds of not only white people, but people of color as well. If the sun shines on the just and the unjust, if the universal law of attraction works in one way, it works in all ways, no exception. So if that's the case, not only do people, other than those of color, need to look at their belief systems that may be in their blind spot, and the cause of this hair trigger reaction every time a black man is accosted by law enforcement, but we, people of color, must look at our deeply buried fear, feelings of unworthiness, and automatic panic every time we see a police officer. A feeling that has been subconscious and conscious for centuries, justifiably so. But no matter how justified on a human level, on a soul level, we must heal these innate feelings of fear, panic, and the deeply hidden beliefs that we are about ourselves that have been ingrained in our very cells in order to co-create with God and demonstrate the nature of God, which is oneness, harmony, order, and love. She concludes by saying, yes, we can temporarily do something about the effect. That's the police officers that are so carelessly killing black men. And they can be convicted and tried, thus sending a message to all law enforcement. And this is simply that all this is simply no longer accessible. But until the cause, the underlying fear, panic, feelings of unworthiness instilled in times of slavery are healed within us, no one is going anywhere. The cause within must be healed before an external change can be permanent. Now, I don't want anybody to hear that as blaming the victim. This isn't about blaming the victim. It's about what you're talking about, John Michael, taking 100% responsibility that, yes, my fears, my internal biases that I have been operating within my life and my subculture are operating. I can't downplay my white privilege. It's gotten me off a lot. It's worked for me. I don't want to rely on that, and I don't want to play upon that, but I want to bring value to my relationships and to my interactions by supporting those that have felt what Esther is speaking to, that do have those centuries-long biases. Let's work together to let everybody heal that. So who do you know this day that you can reach out to and just say, I love you, and I see you, all of you, without a label, without a judgment. I see and I bring love to this conversation. I believe we do that one heart at a time, and if everybody across this planet can start doing that, we're going to create a transformational shift tomorrow. This, I know I seem to say this every week, but I believe this can be the last time that we have to have these kinds of conversations around senseless, violent murder as a response to the social ills and 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 conversations of our day. And it's going to start with everybody, because we're all in this thing together. There's no one that gets out alive. We're all here for the duration together. I believe we can make every encounter work in a way that we all can come to love.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. As we were talking, I saw something pop up on my screen. I forgot to turn off my my notifications, and apparently I guess he's a friend of mine's mother's brother. So his uncle was found hanged in a tree in Piedmont Park last night. Another news that just popped up, and I don't know anything more about that because I just saw that's all that showed up on the screen. But another message popped up from another friend of mine in St. Louis that in Baldwin, Missouri, another officer is down, shot by a sniper. I can't help but think, and I want to reach out to my audience, the audience that follows me on Facebook and YouTube and Twitter and everything, as I know that you are, Robert, to your audience, and together we're reaching a broader group of people. But I want the folks who are connected to me to think about this. Almost 4 weeks ago, we were devastated as members of the LGBTQ community were gunned down. And in response to that, I was so overwhelmed in my local community here in Harrisburg when we decided on Monday night, the following night, to have a vigil, and I expected to see the usual cast of characters, my brothers and sisters in the gay community and lesbian community, LGBTQ, LMNOP community coming together, maybe a couple of our representatives, maybe our governor, maybe our mayor. But instead, what I found was that there was over 300, 400 people who showed up, a block away from my home at Broad Street Market, representing all walks of life, including some of the most beautiful and wonderful members of the Muslim community, who came from the mosque a little further down the road, just to show their solidarity, just to say that in the holy month of Ramadan, that this was not acceptable behavior and was not representative of them, and that they stand with us. Well, to my brothers and sisters who are watching this around the country and around the world, I want you to remember how that felt when somebody from outside our community stood in solidarity with us, stood in love with us, stood in compassion with us. Because I can't help but ask myself, when I hear about violence like we've heard in Dallas, and when I hear about violence like the violence that took the lives of Philandro and Alton Sterling, and I apologize that I can't remember Philandro's name, but where were you? Where was I when Jamar Clark was killed, when Freddie Gray was murdered? What did we do? Who did we stand with at those times? And I think that if we're really honest, so many of us, not just those of us who enjoy white privilege, not just those of us who don't identify as people of color, but also our brothers and sisters in the Black community, the Latino community. What did you do when those people were murdered? Who did you stand with at that time? And if we were silent, then I'm here to tell you that you and I were the bullets and the guns that murdered Philandro, that murdered Alton, that murdered those cops yesterday. If our indifference, our inaction, as Dr. King said, makes us complicit in the crime. So this is, again, and that's not about pointing fingers and placing blame. It's just about recognizing that there is no line to be drawn in the sand, because this crime was committed by each and every one of us. And so the healing can only then be affected by each and every one of us. That the retribution or the whatever there's an R word there that's evading me, but the paying back the victims can only take place when each and every single one of us stands up and takes responsibility for what's happened. And Tommy, glad to see you jumping in and joining in with us. Would love to also hear what your thoughts are as we talk about bringing value to the moment and using that as a jumping off point for beginning to affect healing in this violence that's been going on for the last 4 weeks. And let's be real, this is violence that's just come to our awareness and seems to have crescendoed in the last 4 weeks. But if we were honest, I could list off 50 or 60 names from the last 52 weeks of people who were murdered in cold blood, many of whom didn't end up in the media other than maybe their local media. So this isn't new. This is our awareness that's new, and we can use that as a powerful catalyst for change. Tommy, are you there? All right, Tommy may not have video or audio feed right now. But we are at about 5 minutes before the hour. So Robert, what I'm going to ask you to do, if you wouldn't mind, and by the way, in all of this, our hearts were so heavy that I didn't even welcome you back. I know that everybody was thrilled about you coming back. We are thrilled to have you back, and continue to know good things for you in your new home. As this new adventure begins, and with a new backdrop that I'm loving, and I'm feeling so inspired by that backdrop because I'm having to make some decisions about organizing stuff here in the house, and that looks like a phenomenal solution. So.
Right on. Well, thank you for that. And it's not my backdrop. I'll only be in this location for about a month, and then you'll get a new backdrop. But thank you for that. Welcome back.
Sure. So would you lead us in a mind treatment, in a short meditation to knowing that in bringing value to the moment, we can be the messengers and catalysts for change.
Yeah, absolutely. So I take a moment right here and step away from the hustle and the bustle of the day, from all this wonderful conversation, and from the really deep, heartfelt emotions that are moving through this day, to come back and remember only one thing, one power, one presence, one infinite intelligence that's moving through and as all of life. Some call that Buddha or Brahma or Yahweh, Vishnu, Kuan Yin, Source Energy, God, Mother Earth, love. No matter the name, no matter the label, I know there's one power expressing itself through all of life perfectly. As the love and the light and the beauty, as truth and health and wealth and well-being, as abundance and prosperity. And so I know this power, God, moving through my life, moving through the lives of each one here, anyone that may hear this recording at another time, that right there is the very center of spiritual living. At that moment is God expressing through every heartbeat, through every breath, every word. And so in this moment, I just speak this word of love. I speak this word of love so that all that hear these words may recognize the value within themselves, may recognize the value within the heartbeat, may recognize the value within their own words, within their own feelings, their own thoughts, and be able to share that value with those around them. Now is that time for each one to step forth and speak truth, speak love. Now is that time for each one to step forward and express love, to express the word of spirit as love, and to bring forth the value in every conversation. Because I know within every moment, within every conversation, there's an opportunity to direct ourselves towards more love, towards more understanding, towards more compassion, towards more truth, towards a better understanding of the interconnectedness of all life, a better understanding of the oneness of all life. So I am in this moment filled with a sense of excitement for the good that's coming forth. For I know that no matter what the perception of these past few days, these past few weeks, last evening, yes, there are that seems ugly and wrong. And yet what I know is there is still something good coming out of all of it, because it's got to be that way. Something good's emerging. And as I open and say yes to that good, I'm better able to see that good. God's got this. Whatever it is, I know this is the evolution of human consciousness. And I play a part in that. I use my sacred voice. I speak my sacred yes into that. And I invite each one listening to these words to do the same. Speak that sacred yes into the love, into the light, and know that all is well. And so I am grateful for the reminder, grateful to know God's got this. I release the word into the law, into the universe that says yes, and I just let it all be. And so it is. And amen.
So it is. Thank you, my brother, and thank you, everybody, for tuning in. I appreciate each and every one of you. I hope that this has inspired you to do what you can today and to remember the power that you have to create those ripples. Dr. Martin Luther King said the time is always right to do what is right, and that's what we're here for today, is to do what is right. And I love and appreciate every single one of you. Thank you for joining us on today's program and for spending time with us this week as we continue our 200-day Mindshift Mastery Series. Next week, we'll pick up with the second half of our focus on sales skills that result from making a daily mind shift in our approach to other people. But this weekend, let's make that mind shift to be love for others, to be forgiveness for others, and to begin, if nothing else, using the simple strategies of Ho'oponopono, by just sitting quietly for 5 to 10 minutes each day and say, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, namaste. And say that not to the world around you, but to yourself. And know that when you heal that relationship with yourself, you heal that relationship with the world, and the world around you heals in response to that great forgiveness. So stay in the moment, be grateful for what you've got, and let's know that we've got this, that universal mind, creative intelligence, God, spirit, whatever you call it, has got this. Take care, everybody. Thank you. Thank you, my brother. Namaste. I love you, and we'll talk to everybody soon.